Hello, welcome back to the Ruck and Maul podcast. The pubs have reopened this week here in the UK, so no full pod. But I just wanted to just quickly come on and just share my thoughts and some of the other guys' thoughts from the weekend's games and sort of the stuff that's happened in the rugby world this week. So this is going to be a nice and short little summary of the European competitions, some transfers, and Warren Gatland's alliance controversy, which is broken in the last few minutes. So let's start with the European competitions then. So Exeter, Leinster down in Stanley Park. The European champions are officially out. Let's start on the Leicester side, really. My thoughts on that were Leinster were absolutely brilliant. Really just back to their brilliant best when they won those multiple titles. Just Jonny Sexton, after the O'Flaherty, sort of that missed tackle, he came back into his own, I thought, before he went off injured. Ross Byrne coming off the bench was absolutely fantastic. James Lowe, Gary Ringrose, but someone that's really stood out to me in that was that Robbie Henshaw, just, for me, just solidified his spot for the Lions. As I say, we're still 4 weeks away from the actual announcement of the squad, but he's got to be in there, and for me, he's got to be starting in that 12 role. We've debated a lot on here whether we see you go north, whether you go with Ringrose outside of him, whether you even go with Tuolangi, because Tuolangi might be fit and you pick of what he's done in the bank. But I think Robbie Henshaw for me has to be in there. Just some amazing hits, and sort of someone coming from left field, sort of getting that mix. Obviously, Stephen Jones's article, and I don't want to go into that because that's just clickbait. About Hamish Watson's size. But Josh van der Veer was just immense. I think there's 25 tackles in the game, so don't rule him out. As I say, I think he fits that mould of someone that will go big and go hard against the South Africans. So, Leinster look good. I think they are, obviously we'll get onto La Rochelle in a moment. But, just a very well-oiled machine. And they just back themselves on the line out. Devon Toner, obviously not in the Ireland setup much anymore, putting himself up there, but I think his time in the saddle was gone. And what's quite good, I think, is as an international player, he moves into that just sort of that club role that he's going to be consistently for his club and just solid performance. And Ryan Bird as well, the second row, he's going to be the best out of the lot, I think, in those new Ireland second rows of Henderson and James Ryan. This kid looks absolute quality. On the flip side, for Exeter, you'd be a little bit disappointed. Exeter are a brilliant rugby team, and I want to make that very clear. They're an absolutely brilliant rugby team. Premiership champions, European champions. They are fantastic. They have struggled this year with whether that's not having the crowd, whether that's injuries. Obviously, you have your big players like Hogg. They lose Simmons Skinner for the Six Nations, along with Gray and Hill, Karen Dickey, Francis. So they've lost a lot of their spine of their team. Henry Slade as well. But when they were this was a relatively full strength Exeter team, and they just basically ran out of ideas, really. You have to give full credit, as I said, to Leinster. The Leinster defensive effort was unbelievable. But what I worry about for Exeter is when their big game players go missing. So Stuart Hogg missed a tackle, set the Lama try that goes in the corner. That's a game breaker. He didn't, as I say, Stuart Hogg stands out way above when he plays for Scotland. When he plays for Exeter, he kind of just slips in. And I haven't really seen him really have like that mental, like we talk about Richie Mwanga a lot for the Crusaders, Damien McKenzie, Geordie Barrett, these guys that just basically run the show. And I haven't seen him from that. And I think I've Tom O'Flaherty on a real positive note. This guy who's been in and around different areas, was at the Ospreys, come across, it's taken a few years to get embedded. Obviously, he played a lot of Premiership Cup. That's where I first sort of saw him. Amazing player. He's got great pace, like how he gets away from Sexton and Ringrose for that try is absolutely superb. He could be on the radar, and I think for the summer tour to America, I think England definitely need to be thinking about him maybe for that. But Exeter need a plan B. When their line out gets stuffed, when the scrum gets stuffed, when Sam Simmons doesn't run 50 miles an hour into a breakdown and gets a little bit contained, Van der Fleer and Ruck had him in his pocket the entire game, I worry a little bit about them going forward, just at that next level. As I said, they're the European champions. They are not a bad team overnight at all. They'll just be a little bit disappointed. I think as well, a couple of little additions in there. Like Rob Baxter's brilliant, and I love that he's got the homegrown talent coming in there, but you need a little bit of stardust. You need that bit of X factor. They haven't replaced Nick White yet. Sam Aotearoa's been injured. I've rated that kid exceptionally highly, but they need a superstar 9, I think, to really oomph them like Nick White was. And they could do with a potential option maybe at 12 or 13, just to change up in there. Devoto is a good solid centre. Slade is obviously an international level player, but they could do with someone else in that mould and potentially bring in someone else outside the camp into that would help them. As I say, it's Stuart Hogg has helped them. Johnny Gray's been brilliant. Johnny Hill's been good as well, and that's really helped with Johnny Gray's involvement in there. So, as I say, extra on a bad team. It's a shame for them that they haven't been able to retain their title. But they're definitely open for it. Leinster, for me, it's going to be a Leinster to lose final at this current stage. So, moving on to the other game on Saturday, La Rochelle Sale. Oh my God, La Rochelle are a good, well, not good, they're an exceptional rugby team. I mean, we talked about this in the last podcast. They've got some unbelievable players again. Bouguerie, who in the hooker role. I mean, France at the moment are just a joke with how much talent they've got. Like, just take hooker as well. They've got Machon, they've got Kamel Chat, and then Bouguerie, who was again awesome. 2 weeks in a row, you got Antonio solidifying that scrum, and then Aldrich found himself in this team this week, moving over to 6 to accommodate Vito. Gordon was superb again. Ohio West is still, I'd go with, I think if Pearson was fit, I think he's probably a better an option, but they like Ohio West and Kerbalo as a combination. But yeah, the real difference there for La Rochelle was just that straight after the half time, they get that line out, they break, and it's the Raymond Rule try where he just sells the absolute dummy, sells poor Hammersley down the river, and they go in. Sale, you can talk about the 6-day turnaround, and that's harsh, I think, but good sides adapt to that. You're going to be hard-pressed to beat La Rochelle at home. They've got some amazing players, Sale. They're a good side. But again, once the brute force goes, what else do they offer? While La Rochelle, Bruno Gara talks a lot about him. They obviously have a different game plan per team, and that's an obvious thing to say, really. But they changed the game plan away from Gloucester, where they looked to attack wide. They offered a lot more kicking in that variety in this one. Played with a bit more width. They absorbed the pressure that Sale put on them, and they put them away. As I say, Raymond Rule was unbelievable, and that little Letzi on the wing is a seriously good project. Seriously good player, I should say. So La Rochelle, I do see Leinster beating them though. They're not quite there yet, but it's really good to see these French sides. Like I say, La Rochelle a few years ago were never even didn't even make an effort to try in the Heineken Cup or the Challenge Cup. So it's great to see that. Sunday, pretty dire game. I didn't see the Bordeaux Racing, and loads of other people have told me it was terrible, so I haven't actually brought myself to watch it. Toulouse, Clermont again. It's in the rain. Not a lot really happened. Morgan Parra's still kicking around. But again, that is a problem potentially, because Clermont are with Toulouse and Racing are the juggernauts of that top 14, and I do think that Clermont side. Kamel Lopez went off injured, and when you lose your 10, and Tim Nanai-Williams is a fantastic utility player. He's more of 15. That's where I think his best position is anyway. But he's not a 10, though I think he was fine. But in a European level, you need someone a little bit up there. So the real difference, though, for Toulouse in that game was the two Arnold brothers in the second row. I mean, they are unbelievable. They're both over 6'8". They're built like brick houses, like huge. Great work in the line out. I think Richie took the first line out with one hand and then offloads it down. When you've got someone that can do that, it's fantastic. And, you know, Clermont made a few mistakes elsewhere. And again, yes, penalty kick fest with Intermac versus Para. So shame, because again, on paper, you'd say if that was the Marshal Michelin, if that's sold out, you know, with fans back in stadiums, hopefully we'll have that towards in the summer anyway. But yeah, 2 games where it promised a lot, didn't really deliver. That sets up Toulouse versus our beloved Bordeaux. Heart says Bordeaux. Head is going to say Toulouse. Bordeaux are a brilliant team. You think last year they were in the final of the Challenge Cup. Now they're in the semi-finals of the Heineken Cup. If it goes like it did with Rashton, it goes to a kick battle, and you could, again, Jalibert Intermac. It's going to be a great game. Toulouse will win the game, though, because of that forward dominance. And you've got someone like Dupont and Intermac and these guys that can change games. Chess and Colby, who's been relatively quiet, I'd say, in the last 2 games we've seen of him. But yeah, he can, I mean, watching him earlier in the competition against Ulster when that was a really compact game, and he just springs into life and scores 2 ridiculous tries. So yeah, at the moment, Toulouse to beat Bordeaux, but I'm sure we'll preview that when we come back to it. So just to run through the European stuff, as I say, a lot of these other rugby podcasts don't seem to sort of cover this in depth. Bath against my beloved London Irish. Bath were absolutely fantastic. Played a game plan to perfection of they want to have forward dominance where they've got a good scrum, good line out, and they'll back themselves in the tight. And that's, I mean, their tries, McNally, Stewart and Mercer, they're all pushovers. But, you know, they've played exceptionally well. The Stewart second try when Mercer's picked off the back and Falatau kicked through, just unbelievable piece of skills, and reasserts why Falatau will be in that back row. And I think he's got to start at 8. Obviously, we talked about Sam Simmons in there, and I do think Sam Simmons will go on the Lions. But Falatau has proven at international level of how good he is week on week, and I don't think you can rule him out. On Bath, and I'll probably speak for Jonny when I say this, Mercer leaving is a huge loss, and I don't understand. I've seen an interview with Mercer about how he wanted to go over there, so whether he's driven that transfer or not, I think it may be more him than. You'd hope it's more him than Bath not offering him a new deal, because that would just be the most stupid thing. But what he was doing, he's bullied Tuasui in the game, just like ripped the ball out of his hands when you're looking at a massive Fijian, Irish's go-to ball carrier. Yeah, massive loss. And I don't think they'll replace him. They've got obviously this South African man, Jacobson, coming in. But we'll see. On Irish, a few players missing. I would have said it's all hindsight's a thing, but if Coleman's playing, if maybe if O'Brien starts, you know, Goodrick Clark get a red card the week before. You know, they weren't at full strength and Bath at full strength, barring maybe Priestland at 10 instead of Bailey. Brothy Clue's going off after 2 minutes. It's not great. He's been absolutely fantastic. No Rona as well. So, yeah, I mean, so I'm as I say, as an Irish fan, very pleased to see where we are. We're going in the right direction. It's a shame because I think we could have really pushed on in this competition. Things just didn't work for us. We made too many errors. And the difference really between when you look at the Heineken Cup teams is that there was an example. I'll use an example of when Ollie Hassel-Collins in the second half, and I think Irish only 7 points down at this point. Paddy Jackson goes to the ball back inside. Right option. They did it the week before with Loader scores. Hassel-Collins this time runs that line, just overruns it. And it's a knock-on. It's a turnover. And Irish lose all their momentum in that area. The really good, high-quality teams, and I'm going to say Hassel-Collins is a fantastic rugby player. But that's the margins of where you are sometimes with, if you don't have that little bit of if you don't get those, take those opportunities, you can't progress, and you're always going to hit your ceiling. While let's say scratch that to La Rochelle, and that's Ohio West giving it to Raymond Rule's putting under the posts. If it's going to Colby, if it's going to Damien Pano, it's a try. So that's the next step for Irish, we are a good solid team. Like, we are a top 6 side in the Premiership, and I do believe that we're going to win games and we're going to lose games. I'd like us to see if we can hopefully get the recruitment again to really strengthen, hold on to some of these internationals. Yeah. And hopefully Sean O'Brien will get a start, because I don't think half an hour off the bench is where he is. He needs to be. Obviously, they're paying him a lot of money. He needs to be in around there. So moving on to the Saturday games in the European, again, I've only seen the highlights of the Leicester Falcons, but Leicester look good at the moment. Again, they look like they look like another year and a bit with Borthwick. They'll be the Leicester of old, winning Heineken Cups, that sort of level. I think they're a sleeping giant. They've obviously had, a few years now, nearly getting relegated, last year before obviously COVID hit. But, look at I just brought their team sheet on now. Like, they didn't even start Genge, Youngs and Cole. Like, they brought those off the bench. And like De Bruyne, Clare and Hayes are a good, solid front row combination. Lavanini came off the bench. Visa came off the bench. Like, these guys weren't even starting the game. So it's crazy what they're bringing, that strength and depth. Maroney's been a revelation for them. He might even potentially be in the running for like sign of the season. Just an under the radar Argentinian guy, but international quality, just ridiculous in that 13 role when they've had people in the parks like Hip Kiss in there, which is why they've got the go forward. And Rambenny way back when I first started to watch rugby. Just a nod to Harry Potter. I thought, as I say, he's finally sort of shown what he's capable of. Didn't really ever seem to do a lot too much in Super Rugby. That obviously explains why he's moved over. But yeah, very, very exciting player. Starting to see why they've invested in him, which is good. He's a very, very promising young player. Newcastle are appearing to be what I would forecasted Newcastle were going to be at the start of the season, which was they were going to start fast, and then everyone was going to catch up with them, and then people were going to overtake them, and then they'll drop down. They'll focus on the Premiership. They'll focus on building towards next year. Mike Brown's coming in next year as well. There's a few other signings floating around for them as well. They're a good, solid team. They've got some good players. They've got some exceptional players. They've just come up from the Championship and then the quarterfinals of Europe. So I'd say that's a very, very good year, and they're solidly placed in the Premiership. So good stuff from Newcastle overall. Montpellier Benetton, didn't see the game, but it's nice to see Montpellier improving because they've been dreadful in the top 14 this year. And Northampton Ulster, who for me, Ulster are the favourites to win the whole competition. They're unlucky not to be in the Heineken Cup. But yeah, very, very good. Stockdale, Cooney was class by all accounts. Northampton, though, again, similar to Leicester, are really building, though it's more of an English focus with Tommy Freeman, for example, and Slight Holmes on fire at the moment. And homegrown talent, I think Chris Boyd is doing some really good stuff with Northampton. And again, they're a solid top 6 team. And they'll be fighting in the top 4 towards the end of the year. And if it's not this year, then it's next year for them. But yeah, for me, Ulster, definite favourites for the title. But yeah, just overall, from the European stuff to sort of throw off, I actually would really like to see this be a normal thing of knockout rugby. If you're the group stages are too long. They bang on about these professional players playing far too much, and the perfect example would be group of 4. You play each team once. Make sure you got 1 or 2 at home and away, so it's a little bit fair. But play each team once, then you give it your all. You go through, and then it's round of 16, knockout, quarterfinal, semi-final, final. Like, That's what we want to see. We want to see more knockout rugby. We want to see games like we had the week before, not obviously this week, because and there's loads of different factors of why the French games didn't live up to the hype. But yeah, get rid of those. Everyone plays home away. Don't need it, because some groups have already won. Some you might get one group that goes down to the decider. Just go 3 games into the round of 20, round of 16. So the best 16 teams go through, and then if they need to drop into the European Challenge Cup, they drop into the Euro Challenge Cup. But yeah, that's my overall thoughts on that. Super Rugby Aotearoa was quite interesting though this weekend. Both games went to Golden Point, which I really like Golden Point, and I think though we don't see that many draws in the Premiership or the top 14. Obviously, the big draw we had the other day was Irish Bristol, and actually, if you had Golden Point in that, biased as an Irish fan, Irish probably would have, because they had all the momentum. They were probably going to win. They would have gone on and claimed the points. That would have been fantastic. And as I say, I think another interview, James Parsons made the point on, no one goes out and to play rugby and goes, "Oh, lads, we'll take a draw today." No one wants a draw. So win or lose, Golden Point has worked brilliantly in Super Rugby Aotearoa. It's great. It's worked for 2 seasons in Super Rugby AU. We've seen 2 games decided by it. Absolutely fantastic. So yeah, let's trial it. Let's trial it for a season in the Premiership. Trial it. It doesn't work, take it out. I think rugby needs to be a bit more innovative, and I'll talk about the MLR maybe towards the end if I haven't run out of complete steam. But yeah, no, Chiefs taking the win over the Highlanders again. Lovely little set move from the Highlanders at the line out, which I absolutely loved. I can't for the life of me remember who scored the try, but it was absolutely beautiful. From there, the Chiefs looking good though. Like they could generally, push themselves. They're leaving the Highlanders and the Hurricanes, leaving them at the foot. They've got momentum with them. Obviously, they've got to play the Blues with the game in hand and stuff. So, I think this is going to sound slightly controversial, but how good was Gatland there is all I'm going to say. Gatland there, they don't win a game. Gatland goes, they won 3 games with the same team. So, yeah, rethink what you may of that statement, but maybe you can get what I'm saying. But no, it's great to see the Chiefs back. Damien McKenzie's on fire. Bloody hell, I wouldn't want to pick who'd start for the All Blacks at 15 at the moment with D-Mac, Geordie Barrett and Will Jordan, and even David Harvey throwing himself in the ring for the Crusaders, who slotted a lovely drop goal at the weekend for them. He's a really, really exciting player. I mean, if I was a Premiership club and I had a pot of money and they said, go and sign I want a player, go get me a back, I'd sign David Harvey straight away. Because the guy can play 10, 12, 13, 14, 15 and on 11, obviously. Does that hamper him? Yes and no, because he's such a hybrid. I can't think of any other player off the top of my head. Maybe James O'Connor, because he can play 12, play in the centre, and has played 13 in the past. That's like that can generally play all those positions. Curtly Beale's another one. A bit more comments about it. But anyway, they are unique. And I think that's something that New Zealand should explore is using him as a 23, because if you go on the bench, they line up on the bench with, maybe if Perinara comes back, you go Perinara, or even you pull up from what you've got at the moment with Fakatava, though his eligibility laws are the problem with them. But any of them, Sam Roth, Bryn Hall, give Bryn Hall a shot. I think Bryn Hall has been very underrated at the Crusaders the last few years. Anyway, by the by, you then got your back. You've got your 10 option. So you back up 10. Maybe Bowden if Bowden doesn't play. Mitch Hunt's been playing very well over there, and then David Harvey that is at 13. So that 23. that can cover the whole midfield and the back. I think it'll be very, very exciting. Crusaders back after their big old humping by the Highlanders the week before. But yeah, and it's good, as I say, the news out of that camp is that they're going to, Fiji Daruma and Maori Pacifica are going to be joining this this new branded competition, which the New Zealand Rugby Federation have confirmed this week, which is really good. And then very quickly on Super Rugby AU, again, I've only seen highlights of this, but the Force chucked it away against the Waratahs. Again, we're getting very low scoring games in Super Rugby AU, and it's really difficult to comment on what is competitive and not competitive, but I can just say that I don't see the point of putting them back together, because all you're going to have is there's 5 New Zealand teams and then the 5 Australians plus the Fiji Daruma guys at the bottom. Yeah, I don't know whether you get a league system in there. I'm not sure, but yeah, again, 15-16 and 24-22, they're more like Northern Hemisphere results as opposed to what we're used to in Super Rugby. But they're tight, which is good. That's what we want to see. They're tight, close games. And again, the Reds beat the Brumbies 24-22, which puts them in the driving seat to win the title, hopefully. As I say, they've completely run away with the league anyway. Brumbies are miles ahead of the Rebels. And then it's the best of the rest, and the Waratahs are rooted at the bottom. And it's going to be Western Force. I've got an opportunity to try and get past the Rebels, to set up a playoff against the Brumbies. Yeah, something needs to go, and it's probably not for this pod to say, but something needs to change in the Super Rugby AU to make it a little bit more competitive. Last little bit then, transfers of the week. So big one today, Simon Zebo is back to Munster. Rumour was that he was going to London Irish. As a London Irish fan, 50-50. I'm not too bothered that we missed out on him, to be honest, because there's the likes of Tom Parton in there. It might have hampered his development, but it might have helped when he pushed us on. He would have come on with a big deal. But yeah, you can't deny that the guy's quality. He's a world-class player, and I think he would have been a real benefit for the team. But Munster, makes sense for him to go back to Munster. He's open. He said he wants to be in the World Cup in 2023, and good on him. I think he's been a great service to Racing. Being very smart, gone out, made some money, learned obviously these important things, and he can go back into the Ireland reckoning. And there's a wing spot available for him, definitely, because of James Lowe's performances in the Six Nations. So, only other one that was confirmed yesterday, Lima Sopowanga's time at Wasps is going to come to an end. He's going to Lyon, which, is pretty straightforward with these New Zealand lads. They come over. They either do a Fekete and start in France and move to the Premiership, or they go to the Premiership and then go to France and then maybe go home or go to Japan. That's probably where Sopwanga will go after this, I'd suspect. Hasn't really worked out for him. He was fantastic, obviously, that Highlanders winning team. He's a fantastic fly half, an international level fly half. But I don't know if the system suited him. Maybe the lifestyle didn't suit him. Just something hasn't worked there. And with the likes of Jacob Amunga and Charlie Atkinson there, Wasps are fine for a fly-half with Joby Gopeth, who will probably step away from the game soon and maybe go into a mentoring role. Who knows? But yeah, Sopwanga, I say it's a great name to obviously have in the Premiership, but yeah, I wish him luck for the future, because he'll probably look back on his time and hasn't really achieved what he maybe wanted to have done at the start in that. And it looks like Elliot Stooke, that seems to be banded around for a while, is off to Wasps in the second row from Bath, so which again would be a fine pickup for Wasps. Yeah, and that sort of really concludes my ramblings. As I say, all of us will be back next week. As I say, this week was most of us were in the pub and we haven't had time, and I've just squeezed this in. So I want to get my thoughts out. I want to get some content out this week. So hope you found it interesting, something to think about as well. That was one thing I just put on the Instagram. Elton Yankees has gone to Po as a medical joker. World Cup winner, obviously. Pope, are 13th in the top 14, so struggling. But he could be. I think he could reignite that team and maybe survive, maybe get them to survive. But yeah, definitely for me, one of the best medical jokers of all time. That's an unbelievable pickup. Obviously, they're not playing any rugby at the moment. South African teams. Will the Rainbow Cup go on and not? I'm not sure. But yeah. And obviously, I forgot to say about Gatland. Gatland's a bit of a curveball, if you haven't seen already, about it's slightly controversial that if the Premiership teams don't allow their players to, Gatland wants the Lions to meet up for a training camp, then they might not be considered. Which for me is, and I say I need to read more into the depth of the story and the legality of it all, but seems a bit of an idiot move really for Gatland. But if you don't take the English players then, or don't take Falatau then. So he's then not going to shoot himself because there's a few little there's some really good players in the Premiership. Shoot hard for one, for example. So his choice. But yeah, that's a very strange comment. But Gatland has a previous of throwing the media these little curveballs and throwing out these silly things. So something to watch out for. But yeah, don't do that. Or hope the Premiership team just let them be released so they can go train and be best prepared to go over to South Africa and win the Lions Tour. So yeah, that's really it for me. As I say, I just wanted to come on here and just do some ranting and offer my thoughts on this weekend's rugby. So I say, if you liked it, let us know. Give us a like, give us a subscribe, follow us on Instagram or on Twitter at Ruck and Maul Rugby, and stay safe and enjoy if you live in the UK and enjoy the restrictions being lifted. We've done exceptionally well. So yeah, and have a nice week, and we'll see you back as a foursome next week.